After I paid $1,800 to fix her car, she texted, "I only see you as a friend." I said, "Okay." Then I demanded my money back and watched her lose her mind. Sup, Reddit. You ever spend $1,845 fixing a girl's car because she called you crying at 5 in the morning? No? Just me? Cool. Because I did that. Drove across Fargo in the dark, swiped my entire tool upgrade fund at a mechanic shop, and walked out grinning like I'd just closed some kind of deal. 1 hour later, she texted me, "Let's just be friends." I hadn't even left the parking lot. Let me back up. I'm Paul, 28M, and I work as a field service technician for a logistics company that installs and maintains automated warehouse systems, conveyors, barcode scanners, PLC controls, the whole nine. I drive a company truck loaded with tools, and I'm on call every other week, so my phone going off at weird hours isn't unusual. When it buzzed at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday morning in late October, I didn't even flinch, just grabbed it off the nightstand and squinted at the screen. It was Fiona, and she was losing it. Between the crying and the hyperventilating, I got the gist. Her 2016 Volkswagen Jetta, the manual transmission she was so proud of because nobody drives stick anymore, had died in her apartment parking lot. She'd gone out to warm it up for an early errand, and the clutch pedal went straight to the floor. No resistance, no engagement, just dead. And she had a job interview the next morning in Minneapolis. An in-person final round at some hospitality management company she'd been chasing for months. The kind of interview you don't reschedule, nobody's paying your gas to get there, and if you no-show, they move on to the next person without blinking. She was panicking, full meltdown, and when Fiona panicked, she called me. That was the arrangement, apparently. Before I tell you what happened next, you need the context, because without the 6 months leading up to this call, I just sound like an idiot with a debit card. Which, fair, I kind of was. I met Fiona at a housewarming party in April. She was 25, worked as an office coordinator at a property management company, and she had this way of making you feel like the only person in the room. When I told her I worked on automated warehouse systems, she didn't do the usual polite nod and subject change. She asked what the coolest malfunction I'd ever diagnosed was. I told her about the time a rogue barcode scanner was sending phantom reads that crashed an entire sortation line, and she laughed and said, "So you're basically a robot doctor." I was done for. That was it. We started texting that same night. By the end of the first week, we were talking every day. Good morning texts that turned into running conversations that didn't stop until one of us fell asleep. It felt real. It felt like it was headed somewhere obvious. The hanging out started casual, group stuff first, then one-on-one things that felt exactly like dates, but nobody ever called them that. She'd hug me goodbye and hold it a beat too long. Every signal you could possibly read as interest she was sending. All green lights. All the time. Then the favors crept in. Started small. Her bathroom faucet was dripping. Could I take a look? Took me 20 minutes. She stood in the doorway the whole time asking me questions about my job, laughing at my stories, handing me paper towels when I needed them. When I finished, she put her hand on my arm and said, "Seriously, what would I do without you?" That felt like something. That felt like progress. Then it was furniture. Twice. Then an entire Saturday mounting a TV, assembling a bookshelf, and programming her thermostat, because she said the apartment was impossible to figure out. I drove to her place on a Sunday morning in August and changed her oil in the parking lot while she watched from her window. She came down when I was done, brought me a glass of water, and told me I was such a good guy. Every single favor came with a compliment chaser. "You're so good at this. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're literally the only person I trust with this stuff." And I ate it up every single time. But every time I tried to move things forward, she'd slide sideways. Not reject. Redirect. "I love hanging out with you. Let's not overthink it." Or, "I just got out of something and I'm not ready to label anything." Or the all-time classic, "Why can't I find a guy like you, Paul?" Like me. Not me. 5 months in. I'd had a brutal day. 11 hours on my feet troubleshooting a faulty servo drive in a warehouse that was about 40 degrees. I texted Fiona around 9 p.m. "Rough one today. You free to grab food? Could use some company." She replied, "Aw, that sucks. I'm actually heading out with some girlfriends tonight. Rain check?" No rain check ever came. But 3 days later, when her kitchen faucet started dripping at midnight, guess whose phone rang? I once added up the money I'd spent on Fiona in a notes app. Before the clutch job, I was already in for over $600. Gas, parts, food I'd brought over, a set of wiper blades I'd replaced without being asked. She'd never bought me so much as a cup of coffee. My buddy Joe, who works on the same field service team, had been watching this play out for months. One night after a long shift, sitting in his truck splitting a gas station burrito, he looked at me and said, "Brother, you're not her boyfriend. You're her IT department with feelings. I didn't have an answer for that. Change the subject, but I thought about what he said for a long time. So, the call, 5 a.m., October. I was already pulling on my boots before she finished explaining. Told her to get the car towed to Knutson's. I'd meet them there. Got there at 6:45, talked to Gary, the owner, before anyone else showed up. Told him it was urgent, needed a same-day turnaround if possible. Gary looked at the Jetta for about 15 minutes, came back, and confirmed what I already suspected. Clutch assembly was gone. Pressure plate, disc, throwout bearing, the whole package. On a 2016 Jetta with a manual trans, parts and labor, he quoted me $1,845. Here's where I wasn't a complete idiot. Before I handed over my card, I texted Fiona. Gary says full clutch replacement, $1,845 parts and labor. I can cover it up front, but I need you to pay me back. We can figure out a plan. You good with that? Her reply came in under 30 seconds. Yes, absolutely. I will pay you back every cent, I promise. You are saving my life right now, Paul. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I screenshotted that. Then I handed Gary my card and authorized the full amount. The charge hit my bank at 7:23 a.m. Told Fiona the car would be ready by 3 p.m. and she'd have plenty of time for the drive to Minneapolis. Her response, I literally cannot believe you. You are the most amazing person I have ever met. I don't deserve you. I sat in my truck in Knutson's parking lot with the heat blasting, October in Fargo already bitter enough to see your breath, and I felt like the man. I'd been saving that tool fund for 8 months. I'd known Fiona for 6. Both accounts just went to zero in the same morning, but it didn't matter. This was the moment. She was going to see me differently after this. I was sure of it. At 8:31 a.m., 68 minutes after the charge went through, while I was still sitting in my truck finishing a gas station coffee, my phone buzzed. Hey, can we talk about something? I've been thinking a lot and I really need to be honest with you. My stomach dropped. The 3 dots bounced for what felt like a week. You are genuinely one of the best people I know. Like seriously top of the list. And I care about you so much, but I think we work better as friends. I don't want to lead you on or make things weird. Our friendship means too much to me. I read it 3 times. Looked at the bank charge notification still on my screen. 68 minutes. I'd spent more time waiting for Gary's quote than she'd spent between, you are saving my life, and, let's just be friends. She'd probably had that message drafted before I even swiped my card, just waiting for the payment to go through before she hit send. Old Paul would have typed a novel, would have laid out every signal, every late-night call, every time she leaned into me and made me feel like something more than a guy with a truck and a tool bag. Instead, I typed, appreciate you being upfront. Good luck at the interview tomorrow. Hit send. Muted her notifications. Sat in that parking lot for another 10 minutes, staring at ice crystals forming on my windshield. Fiona picked the car up that afternoon. Gary texted me when it was done, and I forwarded her the receipt with the big red paid stamp. She sent back a heart emoji. That was it. No mention of the just friends text. No mention of the money. Just a heart emoji for an $1,845 favor. She wanted a friend. Cool. She was about to find out what friendship looks like when the friend stops being useful. I pulled back hard. 1-word replies. Declined every invitation. She texted the day after the interview. I killed it. They basically said I'm their top candidate. I owe this all to you. I waited 4 hours and replied, nice, congrats. She tried again that weekend. Miss you. Want to come over and watch a movie? I'll order food. I typed back, can't. Busy this weekend. I wasn't busy. I was sitting in my apartment eating cereal and watching YouTube videos about small claims court procedures in North Dakota. But she didn't need to know that. A full week of 1-word answers, and she went from warm to confused to slightly irritated. You've been super distant lately. Did I do something? I kept it simple. Nah, just been slammed with work. Then 2 days later, I feel like something changed between us, and I don't know what happened. She knew exactly what happened. She just didn't think there'd be consequences for it. When she texted asking if I could come look at her baseboard heater because it was making a weird sound, I replied, that's a landlord issue. Put in a maintenance request. She left me on red for 2 days. First time in 6 months I'd said no to her about anything. Funny how quick the friendship dried up once the free labor stopped. I picked up a weekend side job calibrating sensors for a food processing plant outside town. The extra cash went straight into rebuilding the fund. Started hitting the gym again 5 days a week. Morning sessions before work. Funny how much free time you have when you're not driving across town at midnight to fix someone's faucet. Joe and I started a Wednesday night routine. Wings and pool at a spot near the warehouse. Normal stuff. The kind of life I'd been putting on hold because I was too busy being someone's free handyman with a crush. About 3 weeks after the friend text. I'm at Walmart picking up groceries, turning past the cereal aisle, and I almost walked straight into this dude who looked vaguely familiar. He stopped, looked at me. Wait, are you Fiona's friend, Paul? His name was Tyler, Fiona's ex. They'd dated for about 4 months earlier that year, ending right before I met her at the housewarming. We talked for a few minutes, then dropped this. Tyler said Fiona had run the exact same playbook on him, had him install a ceiling fan, set up a home office, co-sign on a furniture rental agreement. He'd spent close to $1,000 on things she'd asked for. Then one day she told him she wasn't feeling a romantic connection and wanted to be friends. When he pulled back, she told their mutual group he was emotionally unstable and couldn't handle rejection. I didn't figure it out until months later when a buddy showed me texts she'd sent about me, Tyler said. She told people I was obsessive. I lost 2 friendships over it because people believed her. She does this thing where she cries to one person and they tell 3 more, and by the end of the week, you're the villain without ever knowing there was a trial. He wasn't describing a different story. He was describing mine. 6 months ahead of schedule. I gave him my number. He shook my hand and said, "Whatever you do, be careful. She's really good at flipping the story." I walked out of that store with a whole new understanding of who I'd been dealing with. This wasn't some confused girl who didn't know how she felt. This was a system. I sat in my truck in the Walmart parking lot for a solid 10 minutes just staring. She didn't need time. She needed someone to install ceiling fans and pay for clutch replacements and feel just hopeful enough to keep showing up. Tyler had been me. So I went home and saved everything. Every text, every receipt, every screenshot. If she was going to flip the story, I was going to have the truth ready before she finished writing her version. Fiona went on the attack about 4 weeks after the friend text. First, she dropped a message in the group chat. Having one of those weeks where you find out who really has your back and who just disappears when they don't get what they want. Vague enough to seem general, specific enough that everyone knew. I didn't respond. 3 days later, she posted on Instagram. Picture of herself leaning against her Jetta, coffee in hand. Caption, "Rough month but still standing. So grateful for the people who show up when it matters and actually stay. You know who you are. My rock, my savior, real ones." Everyone in our circle knew who paid for that car. This wasn't gratitude. She was getting her version of the story out there before I could. No mention of a loan. No mention of a promise. Just vibes and thankfulness, and a version of events where nobody owed anybody anything. I left one comment. Glad the Jetta's running strong. Still working out that repayment plan for the $1,845 clutch job? No rush. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Within 10 minutes, she deleted the entire post. My phone erupted. Dude, what? Wait, you paid for the car? Is this real? I didn't reply to any of them. Didn't need to. The comment had already been screenshotted by at least 3 people before she could take it down. That's the thing about the internet. 2 days later, 6:15 a.m. I walked out of the gym and found Fiona leaning against my truck in the parking lot. In the dark. In November. In Fargo. Nobody stands outside voluntarily in a North Dakota November, unless they're desperate or losing their mind. She started talking before I could get my keys out. You need to stop telling people about the car. You're making me look horrible. I told her I'd mentioned it once, on a post where she was basically taking credit for having the car fixed. She tried the "I was just being grateful" angle. I told her she made it public first, and I just added context. Then she pivoted to saying she wasn't paying me back for something I volunteered to do. I leaned against the truck bed. I have a text where you literally said, word for word, "I will pay you back every cent, I promise." Want me to read it out loud? Her face changed. She stepped closer. You did that because you were trying to buy your way into a relationship. And I'm not going to be punished because you caught feelings. Fiona, I texted you the cost. You agreed. That's a loan. Your feelings about my feelings don't change arithmetic. She dropped the sad act completely. If you keep pushing this, I'm going to tell people things about you that will make your life really difficult. I mean it, Paul. I opened my truck door, got in, started the engine, and rolled the window down just enough. Make sure they're true, because I'm keeping records of everything, including this conversation. Drove away watching her get smaller in the rear view, hands in her pockets, standing in a gym parking lot at 6:20 in the morning because she thought a face-to-face threat would make me fold. Wrong guy. She came in hard after that. The first move was surgical. She'd taken my text about the cost and needing repayment and cropped it. Removed her reply entirely. The "yes, absolutely. I will pay you back every cent, I promise" part was gone. Sliced clean off. What was left made me look like a guy who paid unprompted and then started making financial demands. She circulated it to at least 4 people in our circle. Casey, Kelsey, a girl named Maddie who'd been Fiona's friend for years, and at least one other person I didn't know. My buddy Casey texted me first. Yo, man. Fiona showed me some texts, and honestly, it looks pretty bad. She said you've been holding the car thing over her head and threatening her about money. I asked him to send me exactly what she showed him. He screenshot it and sent it over. The cropped version. She hadn't just left out her reply. She'd cropped it where her text bubble started. I sent Casey the full unedited screenshot without a single word of commentary, just the image. His reply came 2 minutes later. Oh, wow, that's not what she showed me. Then, she's been showing people this version? I'm calling Kelsey right now. By the time it reached the outer edge of our friend group, the version going around was that I'd paid for the car unprompted and was demanding money because Fiona wouldn't date me. That's how far a cropped screenshot travels in 72 hours when someone knows how to aim it. Casey managed to correct the people he reached directly, forwarded the full screenshot to Kelsey and 3 other people that same night, but the damage was already spreading faster than Casey could chase it. Kelsey had already passed along the Paul's being weird about money version to people Casey didn't even know to contact. The cropped screenshot lie died quick with anyone who saw the full version, but the broader narrative Fiona was pushing still had legs in the wider circle. Round 1 was a draw, and Fiona wasn't done, not even close. Next, she called Gary at Knutson's, told him the repair was unauthorized, and she wanted the charge reversed. Said I'd paid without her permission. You don't call a mechanic shop with a rehearsed story about unauthorized payments unless you've thought it through. Gary wasn't buying it. He told me she'd gotten aggressive when he wouldn't cooperate, and that she'd mentioned legal options, which made Gary laugh. I've been doing this for 22 years, he said. I know what a scam smells like. Here's what I didn't realize until later. Fiona knew my routines. Every single one. She knew what gym I went to, what time I went, about the Wednesday wings, even my job sites through mutual connections. I thought these encounters were random. They weren't. Wednesday night, wings and pool with Joe at our usual spot. Mid-conversation, the front door opened and Fiona walked in with 2 girls I'd never seen before. She scanned the room, made eye contact with me, held it for a solid 3 seconds, then walked her group to a table about 12 feet from ours, sat down facing me directly, and started talking, not whispering, projecting, the way you do when you want to be overheard. She was telling them about a guy she'd been dealing with, how he was obsessed with her, how he'd paid for her car to try to buy her, and now he was harassing her about money. She kept glancing at me between details, checking, making sure I was hearing every word, pure performance. One of her friends leaned in and said, loud enough to carry, "That's actually kind of scary. Have you called the police?" And Fiona, without missing a beat, loud enough that the table behind us literally turned around, said, "I'm honestly thinking about it. He's been showing up places and I don't feel safe." I'd been going to that spot every Wednesday for over a month. She knew that. She'd picked this place on this night on purpose. And the showing up places line was pure setup. She'd showed up at my gym parking lot 2 weeks ago. Now she was sitting in my regular spot telling strangers that I was the one following her. She wanted me to react, get loud, get in her face, give her the scene she could describe to a cop later. That's what this was. Bait. And every guy in this subreddit who's ever been falsely accused of anything knows exactly why I had to eat it. I did the opposite. Pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder, pressed record, set it face up on the table between me and Joe, then went back to eating my wings. Didn't look at her, didn't say a word. Just let the recorder run and let her talk herself into whatever hole she was digging. She noticed about 2 minutes later. Mid-sentence, she trailed off. I could see her staring at my phone from my peripheral vision. The energy at her table shifted immediately. One of her friends leaned back in her chair. The other one started looking at the door. Fiona said something quiet I couldn't make out. The 2 girls exchanged a look that said, "We did not sign up for this." They asked for the check before their food even came, paid, and were out the door within 10 minutes of sitting down. The whole performance lasted less than 15 minutes. Fiona walked out last. Didn't look at me on the way out. First time all night. Joe watched them leave. She knew we'd be here. I know. She's building a paper trail, brother. Setting up a story she can use against you. I know that too. I took a sip of my drink and didn't look at her table. That's why I hit record. What I didn't tell Joe was that my hands were shaking under the table. Not from fear. From the realization that this girl was willing to stand up in a public place and call me dangerous just so she wouldn't have to pay me back. That's a whole different level. 3 days after the bar stunt, I pulled into a job site, a warehouse outside West Fargo, and there was a guy I didn't recognize leaning against a truck near the entrance. Big dude, arms crossed, Carhartt jacket. He straightened up when I got out and walked straight toward me. "You Paul? Who's asking?" "I'm a friend of Fiona's. She's been telling me what you've been doing. Following her around, showing up at her apartment, threatening her over money." He stepped closer. I think you need to leave her alone. I looked at this guy. He was bigger than me by a solid 30 pounds. Genuinely angry, genuinely concerned. And I realized he wasn't the problem. He was just another person Fiona had fed her story to and aimed at me. I didn't argue, didn't explain. Just pulled out my phone, opened the screenshot, and turned the screen toward him. Full text exchange. My message about the cost. Her reply saying she'd pay back every cent. His eyes moved across it line by line. You could literally watch the anger drain out of his face and get replaced by something closer to, oh no. She agreed to pay you back? In writing. I put my phone away. You seem like a decent guy. Don't let her use you to fight battles, she started. He stood there about 10 seconds, then said, this is really messed up, man. I'm sorry. Got in his truck and left. I saved everything about that encounter. What he said, what he looked like, what time it happened. Added it to the pile. The pile was getting thick. The following week, Joe pulled me aside. Our supervisor, Mike, had gotten a phone call from a woman who didn't give her name. She said she was concerned about aggressive and threatening behavior from one of his field technicians. Described me specifically. Said I'd been showing up at her home uninvited and making financial threats. She was trying to get me fired. A woman who owed me $1,845, who agreed to pay it back in writing, picked up a phone, looked up my company's number, rehearsed a story, and tried to blow up my career. Because I had the nerve to ask for what was mine. Think about that for a second. She didn't just ignore the debt. She tried to take my job so I'd be too worried about my own bills to chase hers. That's not someone who feels bad about a misunderstanding. That's someone who thinks consequences are for other people. Mike called me into his office, closed the door, told me what the caller said, asked what was going on. I laid everything out, dropped it on his desk and let him read through it. Didn't say a word, just let the evidence speak for itself. Mike looked through it, leaned back and said, so she owes you money and she's trying to get you fired so you stop asking for it. That's the short version. He told me the company wasn't acting on an anonymous call with no evidence. Documented the conversation for my protection. Then he said something I didn't expect. Paul, I've seen guys come in here with excuses. You came in with a binder. People who are in the wrong don't do that. You're good. He shook my hand. After weeks of everyone looking at me sideways, having my own boss look at the evidence and tell me I was good, man, I needed that more than I realized. That night, I got everything in order. Then I texted Tyler and asked for those screenshots of Fiona running the same thing on him. He sent them within an hour. Same language, same framing, different victim. Sunday night. I sat at my kitchen table, opened the group chat, and typed one message, just facts. Hey everyone, I know there's been talk going around about me and Fiona, so I want to clear the air. In October, Fiona's car broke down before a job interview. I paid $1,845 for the repairs alone. She agreed in writing to pay me back. Since then, I've gotten cropped screenshots sent around to make me look bad. A stranger sent to confront me at my job. A call to my employer making false accusations. And an attempt to reverse the charge through the mechanic shop. I'm handling it through proper channels. Just didn't want the story to keep getting told without the actual facts. Attach the full, unedited text exchange. Her agreement visible. Then I muted the chat and put my phone in a drawer. Joe filled me in the next morning. The chat went nuclear. People who'd been quietly buying Fiona's version suddenly had the full picture. The employer call detail was what flipped everyone. That crossed a line even the people on the fence couldn't ignore. Casey jumped in unprompted and told the group the texts Fiona had been showing people were cropped. Kelsey, who'd been one of the people spreading the Paul's being weird about money line before Casey had corrected her, went quiet for about an hour and then texted Joe, I feel really gross right now. I didn't realize how bad this actually was. I owe Paul an apology. 2 other guys in the group reached out to Joe privately too. One of them had been the guy who told me a few weeks earlier that I was taking it too far and needed to just let it go. He said he felt like an idiot. Turns out when you only hear one side of the story, you make one-sided judgments. Funny how that works. Fiona didn't respond in the chat. Not one word. Dead quiet. When someone's been running their mouth for weeks and then suddenly has nothing to say the second receipts come out, people notice. You don't have to call someone a liar. The silence does it for you. But she wasn't done with me privately. She texted me 20 minutes after I posted. I cannot believe you just did that. You humiliated me in front of everyone. That was supposed to be between us. I didn't respond. You know I'm going through a hard time right now. You know I can't just come up with that kind of money. This is so unfair. Didn't respond to that either. If you keep pushing this, I'm going to make sure people will see a very different side of you. Screenshotted the whole string. Printed everything the next day. Drafted a demand letter with Joe's help. Joe's uncle is a retired paralegal, so Joe knew the basics. Here's what you owe. Here's the proof. You've got 30 days to pay, or I'm taking you to court. Sent it certified mail. Return receipt requested. The kind of letter that shows up in a green bordered envelope and makes your stomach drop when you see it in the mailbox. Green card came back signed 6 days later. She'd accepted delivery. The clock started ticking. 2 weeks of silence. Then Maddie called, Fiona's friend, the one she'd sent the cropped screenshot to. And her tone was completely different from anything I'd heard from that side of the fence. Paul, I need to tell you something. I should have said this sooner. After I'd posted the receipts, Fiona had called Maddie in a full rage, screaming, not sad crying, angry crying. And during that call, Fiona said, he was never going to be my boyfriend. I just needed him around until I got settled. And now he's ruining everything because he can't take a hint? Maddie had the call on speaker. Her roommate heard every word. But that wasn't all. Maddie had been saving texts from Fiona for weeks because they'd started making her uncomfortable. She read some of them to me. Paul's so easy to manage. You just tell him he's amazing, and he does whatever you want. I knew he'd pay for the car. He's been trying to date me for months. Might as well let him be useful. He's not boyfriend material, but he fixes everything. So why would I say no, LOL? Read that last one again. Why would I say no? Like I was a coupon she found in her mailbox? Maddie sent me screenshots of all of it. Then she said, I've known Fiona for 3 years, and I always made excuses for her. But after that phone call and these texts, I can't anymore. She knew what she was doing to you. She told me she knew, and she thought it was funny. She offered to write a statement if I ever needed one. I told her I appreciated it. Most people would have just minded their own business. She didn't. I sat at my kitchen table after that call, and everything clicked. She hadn't been confused about my feelings. She'd been managing them, like a subscription she could cancel whenever she wanted. Every compliment, every late-night text, every time she leaned into me just enough to keep me hooked, all of it was calculated. And the car. That wasn't some confused girl accepting help from a friend. That was a woman who knew a guy was in love with her and decided to cash in the biggest chip on the table before letting him know the game was rigged. The thing that hit me hardest wasn't the money. She'd looked at a guy who drove across Fargo at 5 a.m. because she was crying, who emptied his savings so she wouldn't miss an interview, and her honest assessment was that I was useful. Just useful. 30 days came and went. No payment. Not even a text saying she needed more time. Nothing. Radio silence. Like the letter never existed. Which was fine by me because silence after a demand letter is basically a signed permission slip to file. I filed in small claims. Cass County District Court. $1,845 plus filing fee. Had her served at her apartment on a Tuesday. Date set for early February. In the weeks before the hearing, Fiona went completely quiet. I got my case together, printed everything out, had it all ready to go. Small claims is nothing like TV. No jury, no cross-examinations, no dramatic objections, just a judge in a small room with fluorescent lights and about 15 minutes of your life. I kept it short. Car broke down. I paid. Before I paid, I texted her the amount and said I needed repayment. She agreed in writing, showed the judge the texts, the receipt, my bank statement, the demand letter, the signed return receipt. Laid it all out quick and clean. The judge turned to Fiona. Ma'am, your response? She was dressed up, hair done, like looking good was going to matter more than the receipts. Your Honor, this was a gift. He offered to pay because he was interested in me romantically, and I turned him down and now he's retaliating. The judge picked up the text printout, read it out loud. I can cover it up front, but I need you to pay me back. And you responded, yes, I will pay you back every cent, I promise. He looked at her over his glasses. Where's the gift language here? He was trying to impress me. It was implied, I'm looking at a written agreement to repay. Did you make any payments toward this amount? No, but partial payments? Any documented attempt to arrange a payment plan? No. The judge leaned back, looked at her for a long second, then looked at me, then wrote something down. Whole thing took less than 10 minutes. Ruled in my favor? Full amount, $1,845 plus filing fee, 30 days to pay. She walked out without a word. Didn't look at me. Didn't look at anyone. Just grabbed her coat off the back of the chair and went straight for the door like the building was on fire. Joe was on a bench by the door. Well, full amount, plus filing costs. He clapped me on the shoulder. We walked out into the February cold. Sun was actually out for once, which in a Fargo February feels like the universe giving you a nod. My phone buzzed on the way to the truck. Fiona, I hope you're happy. You ruined a friendship over money. I typed back. Yes, 30 days. She paid. Not on time, but she paid. 26 days after the ruling. Bank transfer. Full amount plus costs. No message, no apology. Just the money appearing in my account on a random morning while I was elbow deep in a conveyor motor replacement. Deposited it, rebuilt the tool fund, saved all the evidence until the judgment fully cleared, then deleted her number, her photos, and every text thread. Clean break. Last I heard, she got the hospitality job in Minneapolis and moved down there. New city, new people, fresh start. Good for her. I hope she finds what she's looking for. And I hope whoever she finds it from keeps his receipts. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. Battles she started. He stood there about 10 seconds, then said, "This is really messed up, man. I'm sorry." Got in his truck and left. I saved everything about that encounter. What he said, what he looked like, what time it happened. Added it to the pile. The pile was getting thick. The following week, Joe pulled me aside. Our supervisor Mike had gotten a phone call from a woman who didn't give her name. She said she was concerned about aggressive and threatening behavior from one of his field technicians. Described me specifically. Said I'd been showing up at her home uninvited and making financial threats. She was trying to get me fired. A woman who owed me $1,845, who agreed to pay it back in writing, picked up a phone, looked up my company's number, rehearsed a story, and tried to blow up my career because I had the nerve to ask for what was mine. Think about that for a second. She didn't just ignore the debt. She tried to take my job so I'd be too worried about my own bills to chase hers. That's not